One of the special things about this conference is the fact that it attracts such an amazing set of not just educationists, but also budding educational entrepreneurs, people who've been in education policy making, and I can see many friends and colleagues sitting in this room. So it's really difficult to throw any new light on the subject of what technology and the intersection of technology and education is doing today. But I thought that today perhaps I could share with all of you a few experiences of the 18-year-long journey in our mission to bring technology to liberate the student from the drudgery of a classroom and also to empower teachers to become more productive. Do you think that's a good thing that we can do over the next 15 minutes? Okay, thank you. So, the obvious low-hanging fruit, usually, when people think of new ideas in education, they think, how can we marry technology to education? And literally across the world, billions of dollars have been spent in trying to figure out what is the killer application for technology. And I wouldn't be far from the truth to say that about 90 to 95% of this money that has been invested practically has very little usage. There was a recent study that was done by Goldman Sachs in the US, and they tried to measure all this technology that has been bought by schools and teachers, how much of it is actually being used on the ground. And they found that the maximum technology usage that they could see in any kind of technology application was just 15%, which means teachers do not use 85% of the technology that is in some way, shape, form, or fashion is thrust down upon them. There's a big lesson to be learned here. People who've been creating technology for education have mostly been people from the technology domain. Educationists who really understand how teachers think and how they behave in the classroom have so far stayed away or have been a little shy in trying to figure out how can they marry technology with education. But the moment you bring these two very different sets of people together, you have the potential of creating magic. When we started the whole concept of smart class, and this was about 7 or 8 years back, we had just one simple mission and goal: make the teacher more productive in the classroom. But let's first look at what the problem is in the Indian classroom. A typical Indian classroom, you'll all agree with me, is definitely overcrowded. So we have anywhere between 50 to 55 students in an average Indian school in a classroom. Now, how many of you are teachers in this room or who've been actively teaching? Can I have a show of hands? So there are about 8 or 10 teachers. Teachers are definitely a minority here in this education conference. But teachers have a very difficult time in trying to get their message across to 50 students at one time, given the fact that you have 45 minutes in the classroom. So our goal number one was, how can we create a technology that instantly makes the teacher more productive in the classroom? Goal number two, students are typically disengaged with what's going on. And these things are interrelated to each other. So you sample a student immediately after the class is over. And the student is going to say, well, yes, I was there, but I was also not there. Oftentimes you hear the teacher tell the student, you're sitting here, but your mind is somewhere else, right? So what's going on here? For most students, classrooms are boring. There is a drudgery to the classroom environment. Our goal number two was, how do we make classrooms more exciting? Goal number three, in India, if you want to sell anything, it's not possible to sell it unless it's really cost effective, to the point of being a no-brainer. So we had to bring the cost of technology adoption to the level of maybe the price of a pizza. So we are really talking somewhere between 100 rupees or so. Now that is a tall challenge, because when you want the best user experience, when you want the best content in the classroom, but you want to do it at 100 rupees a month, that is a real challenge. So that was a technology innovation challenge that we had to work on. And finally, it has to be inclusive. Because when you're talking of 45 kids in a classroom, all thinking and wanting to learn or not wanting to learn together, you have 8 or 10 different distinct learning styles in the classroom. Unless technology is inclusive and can take all the kids along, statistically, if you're, for example, focusing just on visual learners, when you think of animation, most people say, oh, that's for visual learners. You are going to disengage the kinesthetic learner, you're going to disengage the learner who is more auditory, or disengage verbal learners. You can't afford to do that, because the classroom session that is going to get over is never going to come back. The curriculum today is so packed that teachers have to struggle just to complete the curriculum that is already prescribed. Forget doing revisions, forget doing anything going beyond the curriculum into higher order thinking and so on and so forth. So we had these big set of goals, seemingly difficult to put together, but we put an R&D team in place. EduComp now has about 600 people doing full-time research and development on how digital content can be used. And we created a product, refined it, created the second version, third version, fourth version. Today there are about 13,000 schools in the country that are using technology, that are using smart class. There are about 5.5 million students in India that are using smart class. But the problems that I've just outlined to you are not just limited to India. You talk to teachers in any part of the world, and they will tell you essentially the same 4 or 5 things of what their own personal, professional challenges are. So there is not just an India opportunity here, and this is a message to all the entrepreneurs in this room or people who are running education businesses, but there's also a global opportunity. So while 5.5 million kids in India use smart class, there are another 4 million kids outside of India, in the United States of America, in Singapore, in Malaysia, now in China, in Africa, in the Middle East, that are using smart class. So I think where we stand today, we are standing at the beginning of a global revolution. And this global revolution of bringing technology into the classroom is going to completely change, in some cases has changed, the face of classroom across the world. I'm not sure if many of you are aware, but EduComp recently launched a product. It's still at a pilot phase called EduComp Live. And that is about creating a pool of the best teachers in the country, putting them in a studio and broadcasting live lessons across the country. So if you have a small school in a city called Chengalpattu, or in a Mufassal township of Bhopal or Indore, those students can now learn from the same high quality teacher that's available in a New Delhi or Bombay. That's a game-changing idea. And we are moving towards a scenario where every child will have the right and the ability to get the education that they deserve, because technology is going to make it possible. So technology, for me, is not simply about just selling another product to the school. It is actually about changing the life of the student, who all of you will agree is one of the most stressed individuals today. Technology is about making life easier for the teacher, and finally technology is about achieving those learning outcomes that we have been thinking about, we have been writing about, but so far we have never managed to achieve. It's about pushing the enrollment rate, and finally it's about bringing smiles back into the faces of these kids who go to school and making schools an exciting place. So it's been a great journey so far, and I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to share some of these thoughts with you today. Thank you.